Picture this: the Gobi Desert's edge, dust swirling, sun blazing, and out of the haze, a sea of long necks and curious eyes. Not camels, not cattle, ostriches, thousands of them. And they're not wild. They're part of China's fastest growing, yet most overlooked, livestock industry. Yeah, you heard that right. Ostriches. In China. By the millions. Now, you might be thinking, wait, ostriches? Like the birds that supposedly bury their heads in the sand. Spoiler: they don't. Total myth. But here's what's real. Over the last 2 decades, China has quietly built one of the world's largest ostrich farming operations, right in the middle of arid provinces like Inner Mongolia, Gansu, and Ningxia. But how'd we get here? Ostriches aren't native to Asia. They're from Africa. Dry, open savannas, not this kind of terrain. So why China? And why now? Well, it all started in the late 90s. After apartheid ended in South Africa, global demand for ostrich leather and meat surged. Europe, Japan, the US fashion houses went wild for that buttery soft, dotted grain leather, used in luxury boots, handbags, even car interiors. At the same time, health-conscious eaters started chasing lean, iron-rich red meat that's lower in fat than beef. Ostrich fit the bill perfectly. China saw an opportunity. With booming domestic demand and tight controls on beef imports due to disease scares, the government began testing ostrich farming as an alternative protein source. Started small, experimental farms near Beijing. But by the early 2000s, the state rolled out serious support, subsidies, breeding programs, even training for rural farmers to convert unused dryland into ostrich ranches. And it worked fast. Today, China's home to an estimated 3 to 4 million ostriches, possibly more. No official national count, which tells you how underground this industry still is. But drive through parts of Inner Mongolia and you'll pass compound after compound, fenced, guarded, humming with activity. These aren't zoos. They're protein factories with feathers. So, what's life like inside one of these farms? What does it actually take to raise an animal that stands 9 feet tall, runs 45 miles an hour, and can't fly? Stick around, because what happens next might surprise you. Step inside a typical Chinese ostrich farm, say, in Ningxia, and the first thing you notice? It's quiet. Not silent, but calm. No frantic clucking like a chicken coop. No lowing cattle. Just the occasional deep, resonant hiss, and the soft thud of 2-toed feet on packed earth. These birds, they're sensitive, skittish. One wrong move, and a full-grown male, weighing up to 300 pounds, can bolt, or worse, kick. Their legs pack a punch strong enough to kill a lion in the wild. So farmers here, they move slow, speak soft, build trust. Most farms start with breeding pairs. 1 male, 2 or 3 females. They share a large dirt pen, often half an acre or more, because cramped spaces mean stress, and stress means lower egg production, weaker meat, higher mortality. And in this business, every bird counts. Females lay eggs every other day during breeding season. Huge, glossy things, about 6 inches long and tough as porcelain. 1 egg equals 24 chicken eggs in volume. Some get incubated on-site in climate-controlled hatcheries. Others sold fresh to high-end restaurants in Shanghai or Shenzhen, where a single ostrich omelet can run you $50. But here's where it gets intense. At around 10 to 14 months old, when they hit full size, the birds are processed. Not on-site. They're trucked to centralized facilities, often run by regional cooperatives. And this is where China's scale really shows. Unlike backyard farms in South Africa or Texas, Chinese operations lean hard into efficiency. Birds are stunned, humanely, usually via electrified water bath, then processed in lines that handle hundreds per hour. Every part gets used. The meat, trimmed into steaks, ground for burgers, or vacuum sealed for export. The hide, salinated, stretched, and shipped to tanneries, many in Guangdong, where it's turned into luxury leather. Even the feathers, cleaned, sorted, sold to costume designers or dusting tool manufacturers. And the fat, rendered into high-end cosmetic oil, packed with omega-9s, used in anti-aging creams you've probably seen on Taobao. It's a zero-waste system by design. But ask any farmer here, and they'll tell you the real secret isn't the processing, it's the feed. Ostriches are omnivores, but in China, they're raised on a mix of alfalfa, corn silage, and, get this, recycled soy pulp from local tofu factories. Turns out that leftover mash is packed with protein and dirt cheap. So it's not just about raising birds. It's about weaving them into the local economy, using what's already there. But even with all this planning, farming 300-pound flightless birds in one of Earth's harshest climates, it's not easy, which is why tech had to step in. Out here in the drylands of Inner Mongolia, you wouldn't expect to see cutting-edge tech. But look closer. Every major ostrich farm in China now runs on what locals call smart livestock systems. Think Fitbits for birds. Yeah, really. Tiny RFID tags, embedded in leg bands, track each ostrich's weight, movement, even feeding patterns. If a bird stops eating or moves less than usual, an alert pings the farmer's phone. Could be illness, could be stress. Either way, they catch it before it spreads. Then there are the drones. Not for show. Actual DJI Agras models, modified to patrol perimeter fences. Ostriches are escape artists. One break in the fence, and you've got a 9-foot bird sprinting down a rural highway at 40 miles an hour. The drones scan twice a day, feeding real-time video to a central command shed. Some farms even use AI to spot anomalies, like a bird limping or a gate left ajar. But the real game changer? Climate-controlled incubation. Back in the early 2000s, hatch rates hovered around 60%. Too hot, eggs cooked. Too dry, embryos died. No. Fully automated hatcheries keep humidity at 35%, temperature at 99.5 degrees Fahrenheit, down to the 10th of a degree, and they rotate the eggs every 90 minutes, mimicking how a mother ostrich would shift them with her beak. Result: hatch rates now push 85 to 90%. That's massive when you're talking tens of thousands of eggs a season. And it's not just hardware. China's also investing heavily in genetics. Through partnerships with research institutes in Lanzhou and Beijing, farms are selectively breeding for traits like faster growth, leaner meat, and calmer temperaments. One strain, dubbed the Ningxia Gold, matures 20% faster than wild African stock and yields 15% more leather-grade hide. All of this sounds super high-tech, and it is. But here's the twist. Most of it runs on solar. These farms are often miles from the grid, so they've built microgrids, panels on barn roofs, battery banks in sheds that power everything from water pumps to security cameras. It's low-carbon, off-grid, precision farming for an animal that hasn't changed much in 120 million years. Makes you wonder, is this the future of meat? Not lab-grown burgers, but ancient animals, raised smarter, not harder? But with all this scale and tech, what's the environmental cost? Let's be real. When you hear industrial farming, you probably picture runoff, waste lagoons, methane clouds. But ostriches, they're weirdly green. First, water. Cattle need about 1,800 gallons of water per pound of meat. Ostriches, less than 200. They've evolved to survive in deserts, so they drink sparingly, and their waste is dry, almost pellet-like. That means way less slurry, way less groundwater risk. On most Chinese ostrich farms, manure isn't dumped, it's composted, mixed with crop residue, aged for 60 days, then sold to local wheat and potato farmers as organic fertilizer. Some co-ops even run biogas digesters. Manure goes in, methane comes out, and that powers the farm's lights and heating. Then there's the land. These birds don't need lush pasture. They thrive on marginal, arid land, soil too poor for corn or soy. In fact, many farms are built on reclaimed desert plots, part of China's broader Green Great Wall initiative to stop desertification. The birds graze on tough native grasses. Their scratching actually helps aerate the soil, and their droppings add nitrogen back in. So instead of consuming resources, they're helping restore them. But it's not all perfect. One concern: feed sourcing. While soy pulp and alfalfa are local, some larger operations import corn or synthetic supplements. That adds food miles and ties ostrich farming to the same supply chains, driving deforestation elsewhere. And then there's the question of scale. Right now, ostriches are a niche within China's meat market, less than 0.5% of total red meat production. But if demand explodes, if every province starts building megafarms, could the system stay this clean? Critics also point out there's almost no third-party oversight. Animal welfare standards exist on paper, but enforcement patchy at best. Some farms rotate birds through open paddocks. Others keep them in tighter pens during finishing. Without transparent audits, it's hard to know what humane really means out here. Still, compared to beef or even pork, ostrich farming uses less land, less water, and emits far less methane because, weirdly enough, ostriches don't have the gut bacteria that produce it. So is this a model for sustainable meat? Maybe. But only if growth stays responsible. Which brings us to the big question: why is China betting so hard on these birds, not just as food, but as part of their economic future? In a country where pork is practically a religion, ostrich meat is unexpected. But that's exactly why it's selling. Right now, most of China's ostrich meat isn't ending up in your average hot pot joint. It's hitting high-end health clubs, luxury hotels, and the plates of China's growing wellness crowd, the kind of people who track their protein intake like stock portfolios. Athletes, celebrities, even tech execs in Shenzhen, they're all quietly buying ostrich steaks online, praising its clean profile, 97% lean, packed with iron and B12, and lower in cholesterol than chicken breast. Then there's the leather. Forget fast fashion. This is luxury goods territory. Chinese tanneries are now supplying ostrich skin to domestic brands like Icicle and even global names, though they rarely advertise it. A single hide can fetch $300 to $500 after tanning. And with China cracking down on exotic wildlife imports, locally farmed ostrich leather has become a legal, ethical alternative to crocodile or python. But beyond the markets, there's a deeper shift happening, especially in rural China. In places like Guyuan or Wuhai, where young people have been fleeing for cities for decades, ostrich farms are creating jobs. Not just for farmers, but vets, feed mixers, drone operators, even marketing teams selling freeze-dried ostrich jerky on Douyin. Some villages have turned entire co-ops around ostriches, pooling land and resources to share costs and profits. And get this, ostrich eggs are becoming status symbols. Painted, polished, mounted on stands, they're showing up in offices and homes as feng shui wealth eggs. Superstition, maybe, but it's helping drive demand. The government's all in. Provincial subsidies cover up to 40% of startup costs for new farms. Training programs teach everything from artificial insemination to e-commerce sales. And state-backed agribusinesses are investing millions into R&D, like that Ningxia gold breed we mentioned earlier. So this isn't just farming, it's rural revitalization wrapped in feathers. But here's the kicker, China's not just feeding itself, it's positioning to export. With African swine fever still haunting pork supplies and global beef prices swinging wildly, ostrich could be China's quiet export play, especially across Southeast Asia and the Middle East, where halal-certified lean red meat is in high demand. All from a bird most people think is just goofy looking. So what's next? Can this industry keep growing without losing its balance? So where does this all go from here? Right now, China's ostrich industry is at a crossroads. On one path, explosive growth. With plant-based meat hitting limits and lab-grown still too expensive, ostrich offers a real animal, low-impact alternative that actually tastes like red meat. Scale it up, streamline the supply chain, certify the welfare standards, and it could go global. On the other path, the risks of getting big too fast. If corners get cut, on animal care, on land use, on transparency, this whole model could lose the trust it's quietly built. And once that's gone, hard to win back. But here's what sticks with me. In a world obsessed with the next thing, cellular agriculture, AI chefs, vertical farms, China's betting on something ancient. A dinosaur-era bird, raised not in a lab, but in the dust and wind of its own backyard. Not because it's trendy, but because it works. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Sustainability doesn't always mean reinventing the wheel. Sometimes it means dusting off an old one and giving it a new road to run on. So next time you hear ostrich, don't just picture a goofy bird with its head in the sand. Picture resilience, adaptation, a quiet revolution happening in China's drylands. One feather, one egg, one steak at a time. What do you think? Could ostrich be the red meat of the future? Or is it just a niche experiment? Drop your take in the comments. I read every one. If you found this deep dive eye-opening, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the hidden corners of our global food system. Because sometimes, the most surprising truths are standing right in front of us. We just have to look up.